Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and I'm going to be interviewing a really cool guy. I keep on running into him on other people's channels. I go on like Biggie's Shack and The Hunt or a whole bunch of channels, and I always see this guy, and he's always showing amazing books. And I'm actually buying a bunch of books from him, which is interesting as well, which are all Grail books. And these are his books that he's getting rid of to get a bigger Grail. That's the kind of guy he is. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mancave to the channel and to the interview.
Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Hey, we finally are together here. Alan's been persistent about saying, "Hey, let's hang out," and I've been my usual self, which is to put off till tomorrow. Why do tomorrow what you can do the day after tomorrow? I think Mark Twain said that. So
yeah. So actually, it's kind of funny because you're keeping your promise before the end of the year. We were having some debate about that, whether it was last year or this year, but it is this year that.
Yeah.
So it's great that finally we can finally do this.
I appreciate you for doing this. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I always ask this. Tell a little bit about yourself and how you got into comics. That kind of background.
So most people watching this probably already know me, and but I am a 70s boy, and my first introduction to comics was actually my mom's best friend. She took me and her kids who are my age to a drugstore, Rexall Drugs in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which no longer exists for many years. And she said, pick out a book, and she'd pay for it. And I was like, oh, comics, what is this? And so I remember the first book I ever bought, or that I was ever bought for me. And unfortunately, I don't have that book.
I was thinking you're just going to pull it out. And it's like,
I wish. I was like 5 years old, almost 6 years old. So I was in kindergarten. This is where we first met Bernice, who's my mom's best friend, who I still know. And she's 86, and I give her medical. I'm a doctor, so I give her medical advice and help her out a lot. So I talk to her a lot. Even though my parents have passed away a long time ago, I still actually talk to Bernice Ledden and love her dearly and all her kids. And she bought me my first comic, and it was Tor #1. I picked Tor #1, the Bronze Age Tor #1, Joe Kubert cover.
That's very interesting.
Well, I chose it because my passion when I was 5 was dinosaurs, pretty much. So dinosaurs. Tor #1 had some dinosaurs on it, just in the margin, though, not really in the main. The main book is him fighting with some Neanderthals or the like, and so that book was lost pretty quick. As a 5-year-old, you had it, and it probably was in the sandbox, and who knows where else. And but I do remember it very clearly. And at that point, I mentioned to my mom, I was like, I love these things, comics. And well, that was music to her ears because my mother loved comics as a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Her favorite comics, which unfortunately she didn't keep any of them. Her favorite comics were Little Lulu #1.
Wow. That's my dad. Lulu. My dad loved Little Lulu too.
Yeah, Little Lulu. And she seemed to love Fawcett and Quality Comics. So she loved Mary Marvel and the whole Marvel family. She was a big fan of Plastic Man, which is Quality Comics, and she was a big fan of Black Hawk, which is funny. That's not usually
very
it's not. And she was born in 1940, so I imagine she was probably getting comics mid 40s and later, so probably not World War II era. Now, urban legend has it, and this is through my uncle, my mom's older sister, who was born in 1932, also loved comics. And she liked Superman and Batman. So I can only imagine what books she had. Unfortunately, her husband convinced her that comics were for kids. This is when they were engaged in the 1950s. And because she kept them all the way through the war drive and everything. And he convinced her to get rid of them sometime in the 1950s. So I can only speculate as to what great books she's had. But since she was born in 1932, it is quite possible she
Yeah,
had some
she would have had
pretty
some
big books.
pretty
Yeah,
major books. Yeah. So
we try
was
not
it
to fret about it, but
when
I
you
wouldn't
say
see
she got rid of them? She didn't just throw them away.
that. Unfortunately, I heard the story after she had passed away, so I could never actually grill
Confirm.
her on this topic.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I would have if I could go back in time. I'd be like, "What did you do with those books, Ginger?" Ginger was her name,
Yeah.
and but yeah, it is what it is, and her kids probably would have sold the books way before this point anyway, so I probably wouldn't have really enjoyed them as.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Who knows? One can only say.
Okay.
So yeah, my mom encouraged it. So then she started buying. If I wanted books, we go get books, and it was typical 1970s sort of way where I just go to Circle K, which is like your convenience store that would have books. Rexall drugs actually disappeared probably a few years after that time. So wherever it was usually places like Circle K, 7-Eleven, and then I discovered this thing called the flea market. And
Mm-hmm.
so we'd go there. I'd drag my mom there, and I'd just walk up and down. And every once in a while, I'd find someone with a lot of books. It didn't occur to me to ever ask these guys, when are you going to come back? Are you going to be here next week? No. Well, when you're by this time, I'm probably like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
There were no real comic stores until when I was about 10 or 11. I discovered there was actually a comic store all the way across the city that's still there called Don's Book Exchange in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And or I hope it's still there. I haven't checked since before right before COVID.
Yeah, everything kind of died.
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
I was visiting Albuquerque, and I went there, and it happened to be free comic book day. So I was hanging out, and I was talking to a lady who owned Don's daughter, who really had taken over. Her dad, Don, was still alive, but well into his 80s, and she showed me she had a Showcase 4,
Nice.
15, a bunch of books, and at that point she even had them slabbed and knew that they were big books.
There was something.
Yeah, it was pretty, but it was fun to go there, and so she had big books. But so I went there, and I'll show you a book I actually still have. Whoops.
Yeah, you're still here.
Sorry, my screen went dead, so I wasn't seeing myself. But
yeah,
I got a new computer. Anyway, and but I loved. First, I got the Turok. I loved war books. So, and then anything superheroes immediately I gravitated to. So I'd get Tor was a short run. I only had Tor #1, but I discovered Turok, the gold key book. So I'd get any Turoks. And of course I like war. I'm a boy. I like war. And so Weird War really, I bought GI Combat, Enemy Ace type stuff. But I liked Weird War the most, and any superhero stuff. And one of the first superhero books I remember getting was X-Men #100. I wasn't quite early enough to get. I don't know how I got that. I even think about the timeline, and that came even a little before. But I did buy that. I lost it pretty fast, but I just loved it because it had a line of 2 different groups of superheroes fighting each other.
Yeah. Well, it's like 2 versions of.
So it was like, ooh, I got tons of superheroes here. The more the merrier. If there are lots of superheroes fighting each other up or fighting a villain, all the better. That's that. So I immediately like Justice League of America, Avengers, Defenders. It was a big one. I remember having Defenders which is the first cameo of Starhawk. I think it's 27. I had.
Say in that era, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, and I love the Legion of Superheroes. That was one of my favorite too. The Legion of Superheroes. The more superheroes, the better. And didn't like any female characters like Wonder Woman comics. Get that away from me. Now I'm the opposite. Yeah, I appreciate them more as an adult, but as a kid, it's like I didn't want to be bothered with any of that stuff. Like I miss Marvel, She-Hulk. Wonder Woman. I didn't own any of those comics as a kid, but and I was sort of lukewarm on Superman. Funny enough, I appreciate Superman more now, but I like Batman, Legion, any big superhero groups, and Marvel. Of course, I like Spider-Man too. Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, you name it. So it's just so superheroes really are the thing that took over what I really loved in the 1970s and early 80s, and my younger brother got into it too, so we just fed each other. We fed off each other.
Does he still collect now, or
no? He appreciates comics still. He enjoys watching the movies, and he thinks I'm crazy collecting all these comics, but And I still have a lot of books that he really was. I'll show you one book that we bought off the over the counter, that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be collecting. I wouldn't have these books, because I was like the main drive for the collection up until sometime in the early 80s. And then my brother and I went to boarding school in 1983. We went to boarding school all the way in India, actually, for 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you can't buy comics in India. You know, I shouldn't say that. You could buy reprints of comics. They had interesting reprints of Avengers and various books. They were bigger comics, and they were all black and white. But I remember reading some cool stories, like Count Nefaria story of Avengers. I actually read that in India in their version in black and white. But my parents sent us tons of comics. There were a lot of other Americans there, and we became like the comic library there. People would be like, hey, can we read some comics? And we'd let people read comics. And some of my best comic memories of really starting to actually read the stories. Because as I said, I was buying comics like crazy from the age of 5, 6 to whenever. So I wasn't even really reading, you know, I wasn't a precocious reader. So I was more enjoying the art and just having them and enjoying the looking at
the pictures,
beating each other up and looking at pictures. Neanderthal. I wasn't.
Well, that's
so
cool.
sometime in the 1980s, I actually was like, these are great stories, and I clearly remember reading like
in between the two. Sometimes I just sometimes I
now I'm a golden age comic collector. I look at the picture, I have it in a slab, and I look at the cover, and I'm like, ooh, that's great! What a pretty picture. Yeah, I guess I've regressed, and so I remember reading just Teen Titans, the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men, and loving those stories like everybody does. Wolverine limited series, that blew me away. Frank Miller's Daredevil blew me away, and some of the independent comics like Alien Worlds from Pacific Comics, and
that's great,
and things like that were just wow. And they also had boobs in them. It was like, whoa,
exactly.
Great. I was, getting older at this point, and it was just that I have, unfortunately I don't have the books I actually kept. And I remember when I left India, I conscientiously told my friends I was leaving behind, I just left all the comics there. I didn't bring a single comic back.
Oh, really? So you didn't bring any of these cool Indian ones back?
Probably had about 400 comics that were sent to me.
Oh, wow.
Over those 3 years, and I just left them in India. I was told years later, I bumped into somebody who was a bit younger than me. I didn't even really know him. And I asked him, did they have comics? And he, in the library, they ended up in like their library at the school library. And there was tons of these American comic books there, probably all beat up, but yeah, people were still reading them at that point.
So at least you contributed to the,
mission
of comics.
Yeah. So there's in Mussoorie, India, which is northern India, about a day's drive north of Delhi. There's probably a group of Indian kids who were like, yeah, I liked X-Men or all these other books that I had too. They could appreciate. Cool. But it was probably really frustrating because they probably have one and couldn't find the other. It was probably in big disarray, so you'd be left hanging. And when I got back from India, I got more to teenager things, and I sort of went away from comics. I was still I like D&D a lot too, which I know is not our topic, but I like D&D stuff. I was a big D&D guy. Yeah, I played that in India with my friends all the time, and so I still had that interest as a teenager. So I wasn't obviously much of a cool teenager to be playing D&D, but that's and but my brother actually still was collecting comics, so he kept it going in the 80s, and I would read them, but I wasn't actively saying, oh, I want to collect them. And then when I went to college, my brother was a year behind me, and also we went to the same college, and he really kept collecting while we were in college. And I got more into it again, not as a collector, but just enjoying reading it.
Books. Yeah.
And at this point, it was reading
Secret Wars or something like that.
Valiant came out in 91, so we loved the whole Valiant series. We were reading a lot of Marvel stuff, like the Infinity Gauntlet that was out around and Spider-Man with Venom, very big. Legion, the Legion done by Geffen, that was more dark. The Legion of Superheroes. I actually started to appreciate DC's writing more than Marvel at some point.
Yeah, in the 90s, that's what happened.
Swamp Thing got really interesting. Spectre was just then Sandman was profound. That's one of the my all-time favorite things to read was Sandman. And And sometime in the mid, I really at around 1993, we both just sort of had to do, work on our careers and this and that. And we just both got out of collecting at that point. So my knowledge sort of went to 93 and just dropped off.
Yeah.
Then sometime in early 2000, I just would go to a comic store if I noticed, there's a comic store near me.
Yeah,
and then I started reading Walking Dead and Invincible. I actually have the first Walking Dead and I had it graded, and things like that. I wasn't really collecting them even. I was just putting them in a box and trying not to get too overwhelmed with a bunch of stuff. And so I was buying independent books more than Marvel and DC at that point. And now I still have a pull list from my LCS, and sometimes
I was wondering if you got modern comics.
Yeah, not a huge amount, but I still get some Marvel. I still am getting Thor. I'm not sure if I'm really loving the story, but sometimes I'm just too lazy to stop getting it. So I keep
I guess I'll
I'm getting the retelling it's like an a new EC Tales from the Crypt type of reboot.
Oh yeah, they rebooted that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that. I'm pulling that. I'm pulling Joe the Junkyard something, and I'm not like, I see a lot of people talking about the books they're reading, and I'm so I read it quick and put it away and don't really think about it too much. So I'm not. My name recalls like yours, Alan. I know you have a hard time sometimes thinking of a name or thing or getting it wrong. That's exactly me. So I know you're smart, even though you can't think of names as well as.
Well, there's just so many numbers and names.
Yeah.
It's like.
So, but it wasn't until like early when I started actually buying big books again, was 2012, 13, 14. The time moves so quickly. I can't pin it on a date, but I remember getting on eBay and buying a giant size X-Men for like $800, like 2012.
It must have been a pretty high grade at that time.
Yeah, and it was a really dumb of me because it was raw and I didn't know what that was. And but it ended up being a 9.2, I believe. That was good. I no longer have it. I traded it in a number of years ago for something else. But and then I had an ASM 129, Amazing Spider-Man 129 that I bought raw. So I got lucky in buying raw books.
First
that ended up being actually pretty good. And then I started learning, and I was like, what is this grading? I would actually check out Heritage just to look at some things like I was looking at Ansel Adams photos that I might bid on at some point, and cool swords and things. And then I noticed, they have comics. So I'm looking at it and it's like, what is this grading? So I'd see CGC and I didn't even know what the hell.
I mean, when I got back into it again, I was like, why is everything in this slab?
Right. And then you had these books that, there's raw, these other books are the books that I'm used to having. And so finally it dawned on me that's some kind of, obviously just a new thing that they did. And but I bought my first graded copy was again another giant size X-Men. That was a 7.5. I just bought it, the slab, and I bought a few other slabs. And at the time, I was probably getting ripped off because it was eBay. But by today's standards, it was a deal. And
eBay, you just add 20-30%, and that's the
right. And I started mostly getting back Bronze Age books like Neil Adams stuff and things like key appearances. And then I looked at books I already had. So I sent my New Mutants 98 that I bought, my brother and I bought, and my ASM 300 and things like that to get graded. And but I didn't even clean and press, or didn't even know about cleaning and pressing at that point. This is probably 2014, 15. Again, time, I could be totally wrong on those dates, but somewhere around there. And it wasn't until somewhere around 2017, 18 that my comic store that is near me that I didn't even know existed, my son said, what about this other comic store? Because I had a local comic store that's on one street. And basically just down the street, there was this other comic store really hidden. And I was like, oh yeah. And this place, my typical LCS is like a typical comic store. It has a few wall books, maybe one or two slabs, mostly modern stuff. This place was all slabs, and it had some old stuff, some valuable stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is different. So I see this Daredevil #1 on the wall, and this is probably 2016, 17. I can't remember, and it was $1,000. It was a 3.0. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a lot of money. I'm like, I was like, screw this. I'm going to buy this. I work hard. I'm going to buy. And then it was all over. I just started like, okay, I'm going to go for this and that, and started
Yeah.
picking up more keys and stuff. And he had a lot of Golden Age, and he started convincing me like, dude, Golden Age is really the way to go.
Where
So
it's
I
at,
started
yeah.
buying a lot of Fawcett books, like Captain Marvel. Um, he had a few Hitler cover books that I got, and so I've
You
really
should show some of
actually
the.
traded away. Yeah, I've actually traded away a lot of my bronze and silver that I had for bigger Golden Age books at this point. So,
Like, whenever I think of your collection, I actually think of the Hitler covers. I know you have a pretty extensive Hitler.
I thought I was 19 away, and then I discovered one I forgot to put on the list. So now I'm 20 away again.
How many Hitler covers are there?
100. It's the controversial because there's like two covers that people argue whether it's really Hitler or not, but it's 100 to 102.
102. Wow. Okay.
So
So I'll say
still,
I'm going to take the bigger number because
yeah. And I have I'm about 20 away from the list.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a large list, and I don't know anybody who has the whole run. It's like trying to get all the Joker covers. That's the way I look at it, and it certainly is a formidable task.
How about you show some of the books?
Well, I have a ton of. Well, first, let me just show you some. We went in the order. So I told you I used to go up and down the flea market. So this one I actually bought in the 1970s from a guy named Jim. I think his name was Jim. I still remember, and he had a great collection, but he was only there once in a while, and I always considered it an amazing thing. And this would be the first Golden Age comic I ever bought.
Oh, wow.
Detective Comics 135. Now, I bought
this. Is that Frankenstein?
Yeah. It's actually pre-code horror collectors love this book, especially if it's a high grade. This is the opposite of high grade. And I mean, it was probably a pretty good book when I first bought it. This guy kept care of his comics, but I as I said, I was probably 8 years old or so.
Oh, wow.
This was $10 maybe, but I read it. I loved it. The cover came off. I restapled the cover together. It has big chunks out of. I mean, it was totally enjoyed by me as a kid. I wouldn't change anything, but it was probably a low grade book, and now it's a really
really low grade.
It would be staples added, cover reattached with staples. My kid is, but it's just it's amazing that I still have it because I really don't have a lot of books from my childhood. But at some point, I decided to try to keep all the keys and send all the books down to my brother so his kids could at least read them, because all the books I had raw were just beat up and read. So they weren't, really collectibles at that point.
So was that the first Frankenstein in DC, or?
I have no idea. I don't think it. I think
I didn't know that he was even in Detective Comics. So that's
So this book is more of a nostalgic book for me because
it's so cool.
Because this is actually the book that I bought from Jim, and I hope Jim's doing well. He actually had some really cool Captain Marvel Golden Age stuff, but it was a little too expensive for me. I took my allowance or whatever. Now this book I'm going to show you I got from Don's Book Exchange a little bit later when I discovered that place. So some people have seen this. This is the Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, and again, this was in much better shape. But
you destroyed it.
Yeah, I destroyed it. The cover's detached. It's a square bound book. My brother and I stapled it back together when the cover came off. Yeah, it's some
restoration.
Yeah, but when I found it after years of not even remembering that I had it, I read it again. It was fun to read. It's just it's
so
fun.
If anyone has like comics where it says staples added, it's probably from the original Mancave collection.
Yeah. Yeah, here's another example of the type of book I like, Weird War. I loved the trade dress, all the dead.
Yeah, I like the stuff inside the weird.
Yeah, and it was just this actually I got from Roger Metarog, and it's actually one of those.
Oh, Mark Jewelers.
Mark Jeweler, just I don't really. I think those are cool, but I don't go for Mark Jewelers. But it was so I'm just showing some things that. So Omega Man, this first Lobo book, I actually just got his raw the other day. I saw it. I was like, I don't have a reader. I have a graded copy, and I had it. And this is one of the books that my mom sent me in India. And I remember just loving this book. He was brutal. They like flicked the guy's nose and went out the back of his head. I mean, it was just brutal. It was Geffen, the same guy who did the Legion of Superheroes later. That was dark. So this is not this specific book, but I remember this book. I remember reading it and just being blown over when I was when I was a kid. Some other samples of books that really I loved. Galactus was one of my favorite villains.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first ones I bought that I just loved the story. And back when they did graders notes, they actually did graders notes on this book and critiqued it. But it's a pretty good Galactus story. And
yeah. I mean, I think as a kid, we like those overpowered characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Another book that I bought as a kid was this one, Defenders 52. This is a Gil Kane cover, but and Submariner versus Hulk. At some point, this wasn't the first hero versus hero one I had. I think I had a treasury that had, maybe it was Thing versus Hulk. I can't even remember what I just have a memory of this. And then I found this. I had bought this later, and I just love the hero versus hero stuff. And this was a great one. Hulk sort of sees Submariner coming out of the water, and Hulk's like, "Oh, I like Fishman, and he's my friend." And Submariner's like, "Get away from me, you cretin!" And he just sort of swats at Hulk. And of course, then it was on after that. Forget it.
Yeah. I like that Hellcat swinging in the background there too.
Yeah. So the rest of the Defenders actually weren't in the battle. They came and sort of broke it up in the end, and pretty easily, considering how hard it would actually be to do that.
Yeah.
Here's another one I found. I really enjoyed the Frank.
Oh, that's a great cover. Yeah.
So I love this cover. And Frank Miller definitely had an influence on me with his Dark Knight Returns. Love that. His Daredevil, and the other one that had an influence on me, which I don't have an example, was Starlin. I just love the
Jim Starlin.
Jim Starlin with the Infinity, with not the Infinity Gauntlet, but even before that, his first Thanos run, where Thanos ended up, when like it was in the Marvel 2-in-1 annual 2, I think. I forget which annual. Okay. And but because I love hero versus hero, now I'll show a big book. This is, and I think Yaniv already showed this on your show. So this is the second time this book.
Yeah, second appearance on the channel.
Second appearance on the channel, folks.
But this is a big book.
This is the first time two superheroes fight each other in a comic. So it's it's timely, 1940.
Alex Schomburg cover.
Alex Schomburg cover, and this is a very sought after book. It's Alex Schomburg and Bill Everett cover. And I feel like Bill Everett might have had some influence on it. It's sort of a little different.
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
Schomburg morphed over the years
I like the difference is I think there's more line art than normal for Schomburg.
And as Yaniv pointed out, it's property of Famous Funny. So this was actually an office copy. If you could see
wow, property of Famous.
This was in the Timely office copy only. So that's pretty cool.
So do you have to return it now?
Well, I have the idea that Stan Lee might have actually opened this book or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty big book, and I appreciate Stray Flexing, as he's called, Yaniv.
Yaniv. Yeah.
I traded this and a lot of other things. I traded a lot of books to get some of these because
it's a big book.
But
yeah, he has some great stuff.
Yeah. Oh, he does. You appreciate this one. As I was saying, I really love the alien world, so I pulled this out. I just love these books, and I had
Dave Stevens.
When I was in boarding school in India. The stories here were amazing too. They're great stories. So Dave Stevens, gotta appreciate the late great Dave Stevens.
I always think it's funny when you see these ones where it's a sexy girl and she's got the bubble helmet on, but she's not wearing anything on her legs. There's no protection,
Yeah. Their representation of how things would be if you're in outer space is certainly not
a bit questionable.
Yeah. Where's the other one? I pulled this out just because I knew it was you, Alan, and I only discovered this much later, but Two-dimensional seduction of the innocent. What can you say? Another Dave Stevens.
Yeah, I think that's they've actually homaged that comic a few times. There's actually I just picked up an homage to it recently. I
love the actual dead guy in the pumpkin patch.
In the pumpkins, yeah.
So
it's a great cover.
Yeah, I don't. as far as what I collect, most people watching this probably already know, but I like, bronze and silver superheroes for sure. Don't get me wrong. And I'm pretty, but World War II era propaganda is probably the thing
Your biggest, yeah.
that I go the most. And within that, trying to complete the Hitler villain run. Atomic bomb covers is the other one I'm trying to complete.
And also flamethrower too, right? I thought you
flamethrowers. Yep.
Yep.
So here's a cool atomic bomb cover, just since I'm mentioning it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Marilyn Monroe, Alien Encounters. I got this on Comic for almost nothing, but some point.
Yeah, it's
some
a cool
point I'll get a high grade. I know I don't obsess about grades, but the more recent the comic, the more I try to get 9.8.
Yeah, at least the 9.8. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Here is a Jim Starlin, but this is actually George Perez cover. Late great George Perez had a huge influence on me too, because my memory of Avengers and Teen Titans is all based on George Perez art pretty much. So when I see that era, it's like George Perez, but I realized later that he had a profound influence on my love of comics, because he was instrumental in both.
Yeah, like the funny thing is, when I actually saw those books back in the day, I didn't think George Perez. I just, I didn't like try to research the artists or anything back then. Now that I'm older, I appreciate, his stuff. I say, oh, well, those are George Perez covers. Those are cool.
Yeah, and just what a loss. Neil Adams, George Perez.
Yeah,
there's some. These are real legends, and I actually don't have any Hitler covers on me, but here's one right here. So there's
what is that? Hitler. Captain Marvel Jr. We're gonna get you to stretch.
You're gonna force me to move. So it's a Macro Boy cover. Yeah. So it's Captain Marvel Jr. playing football, and there's
we
Hitler.
Actually competed with that one, by the way.
Hitler, what's that?
You and I competed against each other, and you used that one to beat me.
Oh, did I? I'd forgotten that. Sorry.
I remember everything. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll have to remember that you remember everything. If nothing. And Mussolini sitting on his butt. Macro Boy is one of those.
I just think it's cool that they have like football jerseys with swastikas. I just think it's
it's so that's a great book. And where were we? So George Perez, here I'll show some other stuff. As I said, dinosaurs were a huge influence on me. So this was a huge grail for me to get, and this is one of the first things. I actually got a lower grade, and then I traded up to get a higher grade. Now, I would probably look to even get a higher grade. As I said, I don't usually care so much about the grade, but if it's a book that means something to me, and I never owned this as a kid or anything, but just because I love Turok, the first appearance of Turok, and I think it's a great painted cover. And
it is.
Two dinosaurs. Dinosaurs fighting in the background and looking out of the cave. It's just a great book. Yeah. And it's about as close to I have almost I actually have all the Dell Toroks, not all of them graded.
Nice.
And that's 1 through 29 is Dell, except for they have a one giant size Torok, which I didn't bother getting because it's actually the same cover as one of the regular run Toroks. It's not an original cover. And then I have 30, which is where Gold Key took over Dell.
Yeah.
And I have a few random Gold Key graded ones after that. They just happen to be high grade and cheap, so I got them. But I'm not looking to get all the Toroks. I'm not generally a run collector at this point. When I was younger, I was definitely all about getting all the runs I could. Now I'm like, okay, that takes space, so I try to keep it to things that mean something to me or have value or whatever. But Turok.
Yeah, it's a great book though.
This is 1954, and this is actually 4 colors. 596. So 4 color comics is one of the earliest comic lines. It's like Showcase Comics Dell style. It would have a different person. Little Lulu's first appearance is 4 color 74, I think.
Yes, so many first appearances in that run.
Yeah, I have that raw somewhere, but I didn't pull it out for this.
I have it as a raw copy as well.
And let's see here. I love this cover. I'm not just a Golden Age collector, as you'll see.
Yeah. I'm
This
surprised how little Golden Age you're showing compared to I was expecting all Golden Age here.
we could do more, and we'll show tons of Golden Age, and I will show some more Golden Age, but this I love this.
Oh,
This
nice.
this is Jim
Somebody else
Starlin.
showed that book to me recently. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's nine. I got it. I saw it as a 9.8, and I got this after sort of the crash of 20. After 21 spike, things crashed down a little, and this was relatively cheap. I think this would have been a lot more expensive if they put it out in 2021, but just one of the most, to me,
so
one of
much
the best
detail.
Starlin covers out there. And I actually really liked this run when I was a kid. I had Captain Marvel, I had Nova, I got all of these, and when I think of Captain Marvel, I think Thanos and Adam Warlock and all those guys too, which just great stuff. Let's see here. This is the only Captain America I'm showing for this particular show, Alan. So I apologize if you're expecting a Golden Age, but
oh yeah, I was expecting a certain one, but yeah.
Mike Zeck cover.
Oh, okay.
Captain America Annual number 8, and it's a high grade, and just what a great cover. And again, this era of comics, I just have great memories.
So what era is this? This is like
1986.
86.
Okay. So yeah, as I said, I was not. My brother was doing more of the collecting, but I was still reading and enjoying, and just loved it. This series, I love.
Oh
the rebooting of the Justice League in the 1980s.
That's the first appearance of the guy from the movie Wonder Woman movie.
Maxwell Lord.
Maxwell Lord, yeah.
Yeah, so you have Guy Gardner, who a little over the top, but I remember really enjoying him. Captain Marvel.
Really, I never liked Guy Gardner.
I
thought he was quirky looking.
I liked him more when I was a teenager and a college student, and then I reread this series and I found him annoying.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
found Batman a little too uptight. I found Guy Gardner just a little too obnoxious. Like he could have just toned it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And Captain Marvel was just a little too naive and dumb. But I still remember enjoying this and Legion 89, 80, 90, that reboot, like a more modern Legion. I really like that series too. And so, I don't usually get those kind of books slab, but number 1, 9.8, it was on eBay for $150 or something like that.
That's a great price.
Like, you know what? I'm just going to. Here's a slab comic that I bought for the cover price, or my brother did. So this is one of those I should give credit to my brother because I would not have this, but he was still collecting. This is 1988. And this is the comic he actually bought over the counter. It's newsstand, so we were.
Nice.
And so I didn't press it or clean it. I just ignorantly just sent it right off to get graded, and it's an 8.5. I sometimes think, maybe I should break it open. It has white pages.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And because we had this later, if this came out 5 years early, 10 years earlier as kids,
you would have destroyed it. Yeah.
I did have like the first appearance of the Black Cat and a lot of things like that, and there were probably 2.5s, 4.0s.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't worth grading.
Yeah, just mangled.
Yeah, totally mangled. So yeah, sent this in, and I won't sell that. 8.5 of that over the counter. Can't complain. Here's an example of and I actually have most of the Valiant books. I have the whole runs of a lot of these, like Exo, Man of War. I love these.
They were big in the 90s. I actually wasn't a big fan of Valiant, actually. Sorry.
I felt like the stories were quite good. They were on the line of just developing characters.
I found it was like, maybe I think I was a bit lazy at the time. I found that the Valiant stories were a bit convoluted and you're a lot more reading involved.
So this is not one I bought. This I actually just got on Comic Link. I have the one that my brother bought, the actual one. It's not actually terrible condition, but it wouldn't be a 9.8.
That's not too bad.
You didn't like? I felt like the Harbinger series, the Exo Man of War. Exo Man of War was like a cross between Iron Man and Conan. It was just and it did have a lot of. As I said, I stopped collecting in '93, so I never finished the Valiant. And they were still putting out comics fairly recently, and I was getting the.
I thought they just came back out.
But my LCS stopped carrying it, so I stopped getting it. I haven't, so I don't even know if they exist anymore. But the Exo Man of War series was pretty good. The Eternal Warrior series I really liked, actually, the more recent one, the modern, like from the last 6 years. But yeah, I'm not sure if I probably should just Google it and see if they still exist, or someone in the will tell you maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like Solar Man of the Atom, but here's the
Oh
original
yeah,
Solar Man
yeah.
of the
The
Atom.
first appearance.
This is the gold key one, and great story. I love this art. I mean, and so yeah,
Yeah.
I do. That's one of my minor things I collect. I do get a lot of this Dr. Solar Man of the Atom comics and Magnus
Mhm.
Robot Fighter comics from the gold key. You got
I
the
like the
version.
fact that they have the same back as the front without
Yeah,
the dress.
they
Yeah.
did that for early on, and then they sort of stopped doing that later on. But yeah, it's good stuff. And you know, it would be remiss of me not to mention one of my favorite people is Batman.
Oh yeah.
And I'll show some bigger books, but this is again a Bronze Age book, 9.8. This is hard to get in this grade. This is a Kaluta cover. This is a Detective Comics from 1972, and I saw this on auction, and I battled someone for it, and it's Batman shooting, you know, with a sniper rifle. I didn't
wow.
even have this raw. It's just but I just love
It's
it.
rare to see Batman with guns.
Yeah, so exactly. So when I saw that book, I said, that's a Bronze Age banger.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm not even sure. For all I know, that's not even Batman. It's someone impersonating Batman. But yeah, I haven't actually read this story, but I saw this. But you know, Batman was. I remember getting some Batman comics as a kid with when he was going against
Yeah,
Bat. Just thinking now, I think I had Tech 400 somehow
nice.
because that comic when I saw it later, I was like, I remember having that book. Here's one that my brother had, but this is not the one he had. But I love this art, Mike Mignola art.
Yeah, yeah. That's the first ventriloquist.
It's the ventriloquist. That's right. You know your keys, Alan. Well, you know, funny when I got this, I just love the cover, and I remember reading this when my brother had it, and then I found out later it was the first of somebody. I had no idea it was the first appearance of anybody.
Yeah.
And
I love my keys. That's my thing.
yeah, and that's good. That's good. I have no problem with people who love keys because I love keys too. And as we were mentioning, people collect whatever, but keys are one way to go. And I certainly, if I can get a good key, I will do so. But that just had memories of just reading it. And he had some good stuff with the, what's his name? The Hellboy covers too. I have those raw and just great stuff and great memories. So if I see something like that, when I get those books slabbed, I try to get them 9.8. To me at this point, if it's 1980s or later, if it's not 9.8, I almost want to trade it in nowadays, unless it has meaning to me, like my ASM 300 that my brother actually bought. That's a different story.
Is it sort of the feeling that it's just such a common book that you might as well get it in that higher grade? Or
yeah, exactly. And I feel like at some point, if there's any value to it, it's going to be when it's a 9.8. With some exceptions, maybe some of the newsstands maybe more valuable later, or if there are some things that are a little more scarce. But when someone who collects modern or bronze calls something scarce, golden age collectors like us have to laugh because things we collect will have 30 on the census, period.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas when it's a rare bronze age book, that means there's 300 of them,
Yeah.
But
different scale.
and just a note, my brother, when we were in New York going to school, he really got into the hype of he bought like a bunch of McFarlane's first Spider-Mans and a bunch of like we had when I finally went through, because he sort of gave up on comics at some point, and I ended up, even though he was into comics, but he went to medical school and sort of just didn't even want to have anything to do with comics at that point. I was like, well, let's at least keep them. And my girlfriend at the time had a factory that her parents sort of ran. And so I had nowhere to put these comics. I was living in apartments.
So I took the factory.
So I basically took all of our comics, put them on skids, a skid in her factory, and bubble wrapped the thing. So it was just like totally secured bubble wrap.
Wow.
And the climate was not ideal, but 8.5 for that ASM 300 that survived being in a
Yeah,
box. I
yeah,
had two. My brother bought two New Mutants 98s, and because he bought two of everything for a while, because he was a real
yeah.
he was
That's
like
the
he
collecting
was one
way.
of the OG modern
Yeah,
speculators.
yeah.
And so when I found that, I was like, oh great. So I went and sent them. I sent them both for grading. One was a 9.4, one was a 9.6.
Not
At some
bad.
point, I traded in the 9.4, and I still have the 9.6. And
Mhm.
I never had a cleaned and press, so maybe we'll go to a 9.8. I'm not going to bother. I don't care
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
These are nostalgic books, but then, as I said, so I kept them from 1995, because we were both keeping them up until we sort of left New York and we went our separate
Mhm.
ways. And so it was in my wife's factory thing from 1995 to like 2007.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
wow.
so that I pulled it out, and just sort
So
of that
then
was
the girlfriend that had the factory, you actually married her.
yes. So yes, she's my wife now. So yeah,
Well, so that's the truth comes out that the only reason you married her was to get your comp to keep your
yeah.
comp.
Keep I've got yeah. If we broke up, I probably would have never seen those comics. They would have gone to the shredder.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so but I had a whole stack of like Spider-Man #1s, and sometime in like 2008, when I really wasn't back into collecting yet, I was
Yeah,
like, this
yeah.
is ridiculous. I just went on Craigslist and said, anybody want these, take them. And some guy just came, and I was like, take them all.
Wow, wow.
Was not my brightest moment. So those
Yeah.
would have been, I would have, if I kept them, if anything, I would have just like given them as AOKs to everybody.
Well,
But
that's
there
one
was a
thing
lot of
that we
space.
didn't mention, but you give a lot of AOKs. Like I keep
Yeah,
on, like I do these interviews. I've been doing these interviews for a while now,
yeah.
and every time they'll go, "Oh, this is a man cave
Yes.
giveaway," or like
You know,
AOK, and I think that's so cool.
well, I appreciate that, and it's fun to it's fun to spread the fun with this stuff. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I have the good fortune of having a lot of good books. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
good stuff. Yeah, still one of my favorite things was watching Biggie. I at some point I had I had a 69 subscriber giveaway. I thought that was a number you could appreciate.
That's a
Just for the hell of it, right early on in my YouTube. So my YouTube has
yeah.
been around 2018, and I was trying to send videos of comics I put on my wall to show my brother, but it
Mhm.
was a really pain to actually send. The files got too big, and
Yeah, so you just put it up on
so I
YouTube.
was like, you know what? I follow these YouTube. I was at that point I was following like ETA Nick
Yeah.
and who's the guy who likes the guy reminds me of you actually. He loves pre-code horror. He was one of the earlier guys. I'm forgetting his name. It's like shoot. Anyway,
Hmm.
um, so I said, I'll just start a YouTube channel, and it's in my man cave. So I said Man Cave Comics. If I'd known everybody was going to call me Man Cave, I would have chose a
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now you're stuck with it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm stuck. And so I was just doing it so it would be easy way for my brother to look to see what I have up here. And
Hmm.
it just spiraled into getting to know a lot of cool people and having fun.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It's a great community. So.
so I had a 69 subscriber giveaway, and Bubs Comics and Biggie won. So I gave him what I told him I'd give him, which was actually a pretty cool book. I actually, in my giveaway, one of my favorite books was, where is it? I thought I had, was a lower grade of this, but my Swamp Thing,
Oh, Swamp Thing 1.
yeah, this Bernie Wrights and Beauty. So Biggie got that, and Bubs, I forget what I was saying. Bubs got a Turok book. Like I had a Turok
Oh,
number
okay.
5 or something, low grade.
Yeah.
But I decided I wasn't just going to give him that. I decided to stick something extra in. And for Bubs, I stuck in an Exciting Comics. I forget which number it has. The ginger getting lassoed. It's a
Yeah, yeah,
Schomburg
I know
cover.
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I AOK'd Bubs that, and
That's an awesome Golden Age Schomburg.
he was obviously shocked. And then but I knew Biggie loved Superman, and he was like, I'll never have a golden age. So I sent him a low grade Superman 23, a 1.8. One that I bought it on eBay for $200, and then I got it graded, and it was a 1.8. Thank God it wasn't restored or anything like that. Not that I don't mind restored. You and I,
Yeah, yeah,
look,
yeah.
I've restored
Yeah,
right
restored right
you
behind you.
know, if you buy raw and think it's a blue label, though, you don't want it to be
Yeah, you
restored.
don't want that situation. Yeah, yeah.
So I sent that to Biggie, and he just was like absolutely flabbergasted. It was definitely one of the most shocked moments.
That's a pretty big book to just give away.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm a little crazy sometimes, I guess. But
Mhm.
so so that was yeah, so it's fun to give stuff away. And I feel bad because I get books, like I just showed you one that Roger sent me, and I'm
Mhm.
terrible at like going, ooh, let me make a video to show my AOK. So it
Yeah,
almost makes me look ungrateful, but I'm really grateful anybody ever AOK'd me anything, and
yeah, I feel the same way.
appreciate it a lot. And one of these days I'll just show all my AOKs if I can remember, and
Remember them
if I
all.
can remember before my dementia sets in, but we'll see.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it was it's good stuff. Now, where were we? I'm just rambling on here. I can't even
How about
remember.
you show like 3 or 4 big books, and we got to wrap it up soon, actually.
Oh, we really
Well,
do.
I'll have to have you come in for a part
Yeah,
2 where you show all
yeah,
Golden Age.
absolutely. Let me
There we go.
there
Oh,
we go. I got this one.
did it come with the shirt or?
No, this I got on good old Shortbox. Shortbox, if you're paying attention, they have some great stuff. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's way overpriced, sometimes it's way underpriced. So, and I'm not
yeah,
saying this is underpriced. It's hard to even say what the price of this should be, because when I
it's
saw
rare.
this, I hadn't seen one on auction or anywhere in so long that I just said, whatever, I'll buy it. And it's
It's a
just such a
really
great,
hard book to find.
yeah, this guy's heroin, and he really wants his heroin fix. And
Hmm.
Bruce, you've got to stop this now before it's too late. And please, I'll get the money somehow. And it's just,
Yeah, yeah, typical like
yeah,
addict.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the funny thing about Sodi, and you'll completely agree with me, that all
Mhm.
these books actually had good
This
messages.
is actually,
Like
yeah, this is like
the
an
evil
anti-drug.
guy, or it was showing that drugs were bad, that
Yeah,
being a bad person led to bad outcomes. The
yeah.
covers, were a bit rough and risque, and would grab you, but the actual
The story
message
was moral,
was
very moral.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always find that funny. I'm going to show this one. This is one of my favorite pre-code horror books, and it's not the most valuable pre-code horror. It's not cheap either, but it is I just love the colors and the look.
Oh yes, yeah.
Mystery Tales
I've seen this one.
19.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now I got this from Ezra. Do you know Ezra? He's on
I've
Instagram.
heard his name mentioned, but
Yeah,
I
if you
don't know
want
him
someone on your
specifically.
show who has a lot of great books, I would,
Yeah, yeah. Tell him to reach out to me.
yeah, he has great stuff, and he's always selling books that he loves to get better books. So I was
Hmm.
the beneficiary of this, and this guy's one badass zombie. I mean, look at this guy. He's just
Yeah,
the colors in the background, the dark,
it
the
really
blues.
works. Yeah.
If I saw this dude in the graveyard, I don't know, man. I would definitely do my best. Um,
Walk the other direction.
I was going to say Michael Johnson, who's a sprinter by Carl Lewis
Oh,
impression.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't even know who any modern sprinters are. Now,
Magic Johnson, you're thinking. Not
well,
Magic
Magic
Johnson. No,
Johnson's
no, no,
not
no. Ben
I,
Johnson. Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson's a Canadian. I don't want to.
Canadian. Yeah.
Plus he wasn't he doping it up a little bit?
Just a little. Just a little. He was pretty big.
Now, this is a Golden Age book, and it's a pretty big book. I showed you the first time 2 superheroes were fighting.
Mhm.
This comic is the first time 2 superheroes from different comics within the same company collaborated together in like a guest appearance of a superhero.
Yeah, crossover maybe.
Yeah.
And oh, this is
Master
a famous
Comics
one.
21.
And this is the first appearance of Captain Nazi.
Is it? I don't know that. It doesn't actually indicate that. And I've wondered what Captain Nazi's first appearance is.
I think it's that one. I'm pretty sure.
It might be. And it's a classic cover. I mean, I remember seeing this cover when I was a kid. One thing about Golden Age, though I couldn't afford much in the way of Golden Age as a kid. I showed you the one of 3 or 4 that I managed to find in the wild. But my uncle gave me a book of Golden Age comic covers, and
the Gerber guide, or
it wasn't a Gerber guide. It was more just like a thin, I don't even remember what the book is. I've lost the book years ago. I couldn't tell you what it was, but it had a lot of cool, famous, iconic covers, and this is one of them.
That is one of them. That's a book I'm hunting for right now.
Yeah, I got this from Hiram. He was he had it on a claim sale.
Yeah, I buy stuff from him sometimes.
And he, it was actually reasonably priced. Sometimes his Golden Age books are way overpriced. Sometimes this one was pretty reasonable. So I was
that's a macro boy as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yes, it is. And yeah, just you got, and as I said, Master Comics at this point had Bullet Man in it, and it later became Captain Marvel Jr.'s
Yeah,
main
yeah,
book. But so this was Captain Marvel, Shazam Captain Marvel
yeah.
Senior, going, obviously Shazam Captain Marvel, going
Mhm,
visiting with Bullet Man, and this is actually the only Master Comics with regular Captain Marvel in it, on the cover, at least as far as I know.
mhm.
Somebody tell me if I'm wrong or not.
I,
And
I think you're wrong. I can think, I can think of one that has him on the cover.
and why don't we end with one of my favorite big? Well, I'll end with a book that I just got recently, so no one's seen this in this form yet, Alan.
Mhm,
And this, I bought it raw a few months ago.
mhm,
I went to my LCS and I saw it. I was like, what the hell is that? And they had some big books on the wall, and they said someone had just passed away, and
mhm,
his, some person who's in charge of the estate had basically sold these books to the comic store, and they were all raw and
mhm,
mostly Silver Age. There was like a low grade Journey to Mystery 83 and some pretty big books.
mhm,
But he had a few Golden Age books, and one of them was Detective Comics 35. And I was like, whoa, let me look at that. And they
mhm,
wanted a, a certain, I won't say exact amount of money, but they were great. They put it at a 1.5. And
mhm,
I'm looking at it and going, wow, that's one beautiful 1.5. The,
mhm,
the spine was pretty messed up. And they graded it, this LCS, if they have a big Silver Age book, they're going to usually overprice it. But with
mhm.
Golden Age, they're not as knowledgeable, I think, or whatever. And they actually had a pretty good price, even if it was exactly a 1.5. It was a
Mhm,
good price for that, not an aggressive price. Like, it was a very, very good price that even if it would happen to be a 1.0, it would have still been worthwhile, because it was probably the price you would get for a 1.0.
mhm.
And I said, well, yeah, let me write a check. I'll be right back. It's like, hold that for me.
Oh,
I counted the pages. I'm like, it's complete. It
yeah,
looked
yeah.
at it, and I was like, all right, I'm buying this. And I'll explain it to my wife later. I got this is
Figure it out later. Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, it looks, and they're like, yeah, we think it could be a 1.8 if you're lucky, at 2.0. And I got it. And man, the page quality was pretty good. The spine made me nervous. I was like, I don't know.
Mhm,
If that spine comes apart during grading or something, it's going to be a mess. I
mhm.
didn't even want to send it to clean and press, because I feel like that might have messed it up.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got it, and I had it for a while raw. I just love it. And I sent it off to get graded, and it came back a 3.0, which is like,
Wow.
whoa, I was just blown away, man. So
Mhm.
this is like a massive turnaround on investment.
Yeah,
Probably the best what I've had in a
is
while.
that the first Hugo Strange or
No, it's just an awesome,
hypodermic needle cover?
yeah, hypodermic needle cover. It's Tech 35. Just any pre-Robin tech is just really, the only one that's even close to being cheap is probably number 37, which people don't like that cover as much. But
Mhm.
30, 29 is a big one. That's the first Dr. Death.
Uh,
31 is obviously the biggest one, for not 27. We're not even talking about 27, but 31 is the famous cover with him looming over the castle. 33, it's not, I don't really like 33 cover that much. The only reason it is really valuable is he has a holster. It's an empty holster, but it's
oh,
implies
okay.
that
Just to
Batman had a
see Batman
gun.
with the gun. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And this is 35. It's a hypodermic needle. It's an evil doctor, so I can appreciate that. And
Mhm.
January 1940. 36 is the first Hugo Strange.
Oh,
And
okay. So this is the one before. Okay.
yes. So all the even ones before this, 28, 30, 32, 34, were not Batman covers. So at
Mhm.
this point onward, it's all Batman covers. So
They
36,
realize that Batman's
yeah,
actually selling the
yeah.
comics.
So number 36 was first Hugo Strange. 37, he's just sort of like doing a judo flip on somebody. And
Mhm.
38, do you have 38 yet?
Yeah, we might. Well, you never know. I might get it in the future. I think.
Yeah, maybe. But since you mentioned Hugo Strange, I guess I really have to show that I actually have that. So I'm going to show that to you.
Oh, okay.
So this is 36.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
what I
lower
was thinking
grade.
about it actually. Once I missaid the other one because I remember seeing this on Heritage,
Yeah,
and I just remember him jumping through and kicking the guy, and
yeah. So it's a pretty good cover. I like the other cover more. This is a key because it's Hugo Strange, but it's a great,
Mhm.
any pre Robin tech
Yeah, big deal.
is just, yeah. And I got this. I can't remember. Did I get it on? No, I didn't. I I got this on auction a number of years ago when I was first starting to
Mhm.
delve into auctions, and I didn't even know it was the first Hugo Strange when I got on auction. That's the
You just
funny.
thought it was a cool
Yeah,
Batman.
it's just like, oh, that's a run I'm actually trying to get, or pre Robin tech covers
Mhm.
is one of the things that I keep an eye out. And I have three of them. I have three now.
There's only
I have
7 more to go, right?
Yeah, well, I don't care about the ones that don't have Batman on the cover so much. So
Mhm.
it's fewer than that. It's really not including 27. So 29, 31, 33, 35, 36, 37. So there's 7 total, and I have 3. So I have 4 more to go.
Yeah, you're halfway. Halfway.
Yeah, yeah. And oops,
Oh.
I will mute that.
Okay, but
But yeah, so I wasn't going to show that because I was like, I feel like the 35 is the bigger book. But
no, no, no,
since
it's
you
cool.
mentioned
Like,
Hugo Strange,
well, you're showing all these like Bronze Age and like
yeah,
Copper
yeah,
Age stuff,
that's,
and like,
I
and then
love
you're
Golden
not
Age.
showing these bigger books that you
Yeah,
have there. So
those are all big books. What are you talking about? That Captain Marvel 29, 9.8. That's a beast, but it
Mhm.
ain't a Golden Age beast. You're right.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say, what book are you chasing now? Like, I know you're giving up some books because I'm buying those books that you're kind of giving.
Right. Right now, I am just I have a problem where Yaniv and Lee Polonsky, who I didn't show any of the books I got from Lee. Lee's another. So I actually owe them money for a lot of books I bought from some big, really
Mhm.
big, cool books, which I will show later when I get them. So right
Mhm.
now I'm just trying to get that all settled. So that's going to be happening for the next few
Okay.
months, to say the least.
So
It's
you've
just,
gotten the big books. Like usually when I ask that question, people are like, "Oh, I really want to get," but
yeah.
you've gotten them now. You're trying to figure out how to pay for them.
Well, I know how I'm paying for them, but it's going to take. They're very kind, and I do time
Yeah.
payments. So it's Lee. I've been paying Lee every month for like a year and a half now.
Well, I'll be doing the
But
same
but
as
I
well.
typically pay something off, and then I get it, and then there's something else that I already said, hey, are you selling that? I'd love to.
Well, we were
Appreciate
talking about the first Robin. I'll be doing
Yeah.
some payments on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as what, I'll tell you right now, just because why not? I got Black Cat 50,
Oh
the
wow, wow. Yeah, 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 yeah.
a blue label 4.0 from.
Wow,
So
that's a
I'm working
really
on that with
big book.
Lee,
Yeah.
and with Yaniv, I have a Wiz Comics #2, very low grade, but first Cap
So
Marvel.
wow, yeah. So that's one of those things that always
Yeah.
throws people off. You say Wiz Comics 2, but it's actually Wiz Comics 1.
Why?
It's
Yeah.
I,
So
I don't know
Wiz
why
Comics
that.
1 was a ash can called Flash Comics. It shows
Mhm,
Cap Marvel. It's not really a comic. And then
mhm,
they made it Wiz Comics after that. So Flash Comics 1 was not really in general circulation, and it was the first. That's like the first appearance of Cap Marvel. But
mhm.
Wiz Comics 2 is the first real, where he's widely distributed.
Yeah.
And with Yaniv, I have a bunch of other stuff. It's like a lot of little, like just a bunch of, okay, I'll call them little things, but I have a few Hitler
Mhm.
covers I'm working on,
Yeah, yeah.
working off. And I had a Cap 1 lower grade, and I traded Yaniv. I got him that Cap 1, and he has a higher grade Cap 1 that I haven't quite paid off. That it's still
Mhm.
restored, but it's a really nice restored. It's white pages, and I'm working on that one too. So right
Nice.
now I'm sans Cap 1 for a little bit, but
Mhm.
I should have that one pretty soon. And
That's cool.
and
Is it the same copy, the one that I saw?
did he show you that one? Yeah, it is. I think it
Yeah,
is that one. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny that I
I'll
saw it
show it.
before you
I'll
did.
show it again on I've seen it, he has it on Instagram, so I'll show it again. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's a nice
It's
copy.
very nice copy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that's what I'm working on. And after that, I have I traded in my AF-15, my
Mhm.
my Amazing Fantasy 15. So I'm probably going to work to get one back, because I
Yeah.
think that is such an iconic book. I don't want to be without. I've owned 2 of them now in my life. So
Well, it's
third
one of
one
those books
third one
that,
will hopefully be the charm, and I'll keep that.
like, it's from what I can understand of what you're doing. The books that you're getting are really hard to get. Like
Yes.
that, like Black Cat 50. That's one
Yeah,
of those impossible books to
it's hard
find.
to, yeah, it's a,
AF-15, though it's a great book. I have
yeah,
it.
you can go on eBay and buy one right now if you have the money and
Exactly.
pay a little
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Every auction, practically every other heritage auction has one.
Yeah. Well,
And it's a
and
great
they
book.
have like not just one, they'll have like four of
Yeah,
them. Like,
yeah,
well,
and now that price has dropped quite a bit, so
mhm.
maybe you'll see. When when the first AF-15 I got a few years ago, and it was way cheaper than it's. I think I would say it's almost at the price. It's still a little cheaper than what it is now, but it was an expensive book.
I still see it being
It
pretty
was
pricey.
They weren't coming on auction every single month at that point. They were
Uh,
certainly, and now it's like there's a floodgate of AF-15s that sort of.
yeah. Well, it's still funny. Like I still feel like I lucked out with my book because I got a 3.0. I paid 12,000 for it,
Yeah,
and then there was the big sale.
right. Oh, so now
Price just went-
you got that right early 2021 probably, or late
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
The big sale was actually a Ditko sign cover that went for like 35, and it was way
Mhm.
above everything else. And I thought, well, that was a big sale because it was Ditko, though it's
Yeah.
not a CGC verified Ditko, because
Yeah.
Steve Ditko would never
Never do
wouldn't give
that.
him the
Yeah.
time of day. He wasn't into that. So, but I think, yeah, that sparked it, and then it just went. Then at that point, I was like, oh wow, it's gotten a little nuts.
Well, I
Yeah.
still see people selling like 2.0s for like 30 plus thousand.
Yeah, they're in yesterday's prices, so it'll come back to reality, and maybe they don't really want to sell it; they just want to show it off. I sometimes think some sellers don't really want.
Well,
to
you
sell.
do that, yeah, as a way to kind of flex your muscles and kind of get the attention, right?
Yeah, sort of yeah, and so that's probably of the big grails that I'm looking to get and that would be next year at earliest, if even later than that. And I'm always getting little stuff here and there. I'm like you, I don't. Even though I have debts to pay, I still
buy.
Yeah,
same as me. Yeah, yeah. I just picked up some stuff.
Yeah. So as long as the whole world doesn't collapse, and if that happens, well, I'll enjoy what I have.
Yeah. As long as we can eat the comics, then we're okay.
Yeah, a lot of fiber.
Yeah,
the Golden Age comics have poisonous inks, probably. So you want.
Well.
Start with the Bronze Age.
Work our way back. So where can people find you? Like is it Instagram or YouTube?
Instagram is, I think it's Mancave Comics 1, I think, or something, because someone else had Mancave Comics before me, and people sometimes mistakenly think it's him. So there,
I'll put these links in the by the way.
And on my YouTube, if someone messages me on YouTube, that's really, and if they want my IG, I can just, if you ever leave a comment, but but Instagram's the easiest way since or ask Alan, he knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, exactly. Or sometimes you're on like Biggie Shack's show.
Yeah, Fridays have been rough for me, so I haven't been able to get on there. Maybe I'll show that Tech 35 on him this week. I think
that'd be cool.
I might be able to come on this week, because I did show Biggie the raw one, and I could show. That was a big find in the wild. That was one of those, I wasn't planning on getting it, but then I saw it was way too cheap to pass up at that point.
Yeah. No, that's a nice book.
It was one of those fortune favors the prepared mind moments. Not that my mind's always prepared, but at that moment,
I was surprised that you didn't show one set of books that you got an amazing deal on. The ones with Bullet Girl, first Bullet Girl.
Oh yeah. Oh, then that'll be next time. We could do that. Yeah.
There's
so many books to show.
Yeah.
Those are, and I actually got that graded.
Really?
And it ended up being, and I didn't get it. You know what, Alan? I sort of screwed up, if I may say. I should have sent that for a clean impress, but sometimes I don't really.
With Golden Age, it can be a bit.
Yeah. So when I look at it, it's like, it is wrinkly. I probably could have got it to 5.5, but it's a 5.0.
Oh wow! That's a really great.
Yeah,
grade.
It's a great.
You paid less than I did for the lot. Then
the lot, and that lot has great books in it. I should show you that whole lot. It's an amazing lot, actually.
Well, we'll have to do a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was fun.
It'll be earlier than a whole year from now, I promise.
Yeah, I hope so.
I was surprised at all the people you've had on it, because I was looking through, and I watched you with Automatic Comics the other day. That was fun. And then I noticed you'd already done D-Runk. I was like, when did you interview D-Runk? I must have missed
exactly.
it.
So I mean,
I'm not paying attention here. So
I
let me
think
go
I
back
asked you
and check it out.
long before all these other guys. Like
Yeah,
long,
and I
like,
think you've interviewed Biggie Shack twice.
yeah.
Who else have you interviewed twice? Keston, have you interviewed?
Keston, no, I gotta interview him again actually. But Bleecker.
Bleecker, yep. I
Um,
gotta check those out. Yeah, I gotta.
yeah, I did Bleecker live by accident. So normally these are these are recorded, right?
Gotcha.
But I clicked the wrong button, so it went live, and I was like, oh, I guess we'll just do it live.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate I appreciate hanging out with you, Alan, and we'll definitely do more. And maybe when you come to your senses and move to the United States, we'll give you a good. No, just.
Oh, thanks again, by the way.
Yes,
so,
please.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching, and please leave a comment below. And check Mancave out on Instagram. Okay, bye for now.